You know, I've always been very passionate about dementia research. I think dementia is something that's probably touched all of us at some level, be it a parent, a grandparent, or a close relative. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about dementia research and why it's a big focus of our research programme here in the neurosciences at NUI Galway. This was a large international collaboration between our group here at NUI Galway and researchers at University of Texas Health Sciences Centre in San Antonio and Boston University's Framingham Heart Study. This was a large collaborative effort. We were looking at risk factors for dementia right across the lifespan, so people in their midlife, in their 50s, right through up until their 80s. Basically, we utilised a group of patients from a small town called Framingham in Massachusetts. And so what they did is they actually looked at patients starting back in the 40s and followed them forward over time to see whether they developed risk factors for heart disease and stroke. We looked at people in their 50s, so in their mid-years, and then brought them forward in their 60s, 70s, and right forward into their 80s. And we followed all of those people to see whether they went on to develop dementia in the next 10 years. So we looked at blood pressure, whether you had previously had a heart attack, whether you had a stroke, whether you were a smoker, etc. What we found was actually very interesting. The profile of risk factors actually changed in terms of what was most important for risk of dementia. And in your 50s, we found that people who had diabetes had 4 times the risk of going on to develop dementia. So in your 60s, we found that what actually changed was whether or not you'd actually had evidence of damage to one of your organs. So we actually found that people who'd had a previous heart attack had a much greater risk of going on to develop dementia. And then as we moved into the 70s and 80s, while diabetes was still an important risk factor, stroke was one of the biggest risk factors. People who had a stroke had over 3.5 times the chance of going on to develop dementia compared to somebody who hadn't had a stroke. And the great news about all of this is much of this we already know what we should be doing. And it really does go back to that age-old message of healthy lifestyle. We really can reduce our future risk of going on to develop dementia.